Have you ever watched them move on so quickly that your heart felt like it had been hollowed out? One day, there was a deafening silence, a cold distance that felt like a permanent winter. The next, they are beaming in photographs with someone new, their social media, a sudden garden of quotes about destiny, soulmates, and finding peace. You find yourself standing in the doorway between two worlds that cannot possibly coexist. In one, you are still holding the shards of a shared past, your hands bleeding from the memories. In the other, they are living a vibrant, happy future, seemingly untouched by the wreckage they left behind. And in that disorienting space, a chorus of whispers begins in your mind. Was it all a lie? Was I just a chapter they could close so easily? Was I never enough? The pain of these questions is immense, but the truth, the real truth, is far deeper and has nothing to do with your worth. They didn't move on because they healed. They moved on because they cannot bear to stand still. For a narcissist, stillness is not peace. It is a terrifying confrontation with the one thing they have spent a lifetime running from, the echoing emptiness within themselves. They are trapped in a house of their own making, a vast and intricate house of mirrors. They don't live in it to see themselves clearly. They live in it to see 1,000 distorted, flattering reflections of who they wish they were. You were once the most pristine, polished mirror in that house. You reflected back their grandeur, their charm, their perceived perfection. But love, real love, doesn't just reflect light, it reveals truth. And when your reflection began to show them the parts of themselves they refused to see, their insecurities, their coldness, their profound emptiness, the mirror became a threat. They couldn't face that truth, so they did the only thing they know how to do. They shattered the mirror. And now, they have simply walked into an identical room in the very same house and found a new, gleaming mirror to hang on the wall. They are not in love with the new person. They are in love with a new reflection. If this feeling of being replaced, of being erased from a story you thought you were co-authoring, resonates deep within your soul, I want you to know you are not alone in this confusing labyrinth. The disorientation you feel is real, and it is not a sign of your weakness, but a testament to your depth of feeling. I invite you to walk with me on this journey of understanding. Let's explore the architecture of this strange house together, not to judge its inhabitant, but to find the key to your own freedom. Subscribe to Mind Decode Explained, and let's find the way out of this house and back into the sunlight together. The journey begins with understanding the blueprint of their world. For the narcissist, a relationship is not a home to be built by two souls. It is a stage, a performance. Every smile, every seemingly profound conversation, every tender touch is a line from a script they have rehearsed for a lifetime. They are not connecting with a person, they are captivating an audience. The new partner is not a lover. They are the front row seat, the standing ovation they so desperately crave. From the very first moment, they become master artists of perception. They study their new subject with the intensity of a sculptor looking at a block of marble, searching for the desires, the dreams, and the unhealed wounds that lie just beneath the surface. They listen, not to understand, but to gather data. What makes this person feel seen? What words unlock their heart? What past hurts have left them longing for a savior? Then, with chilling precision, they become the very answer to those unspoken prayers. They mirror the new partner's language, their energy, their hopes, creating a breathtaking illusion of fated connection. It feels like magic, like destiny, but it is a meticulously crafted performance. This isn't empathy, it's emotional espionage. Behind this performance lies an insatiable hunger, not for love, but for admiration, which they mistake for love. The great psychologist Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we repress and deny. For the narcissist, their shadow is a vast, cavernous emptiness, a core belief of being unlovable or worthless. They cannot bear to look into this inner darkness, so they build the house of mirrors around it. Each new person is a new mirror tasked with one sacred duty, to reflect back an image of them that is radiant, powerful, and whole. The new partner's adoration becomes the light by which the narcissist sees themselves, temporarily banishing the shadow. They don't love the person. They love the function the person serves. They are addicted to the reflection, not the soul providing it. When you see them in those blissful photos, holding hands, looking into each other's eyes, look closer. Look beyond the curated smiles. You will not see two souls connecting. You will see one soul desperately clinging to its own reflection in the other's gaze. The post isn't a celebration of their love, it's a public announcement designed to reassure themselves. See, I am still desired. I still exist. The darkness did not win. Every whispered I love you is not a gift of affection to the other person. It is a desperate mantra whispered to the void within themselves, an attempt to convince themselves of a reality they cannot feel. They live in a state of constant, exhausting performance, an actor who can never leave the stage because in the silence and the darkness backstage, they cease to exist. The applause of a new partner is the only thing that drowns out the sound of their own inner silence. This desperate flight from self becomes the very cage that traps them. They seek validation from the outside to fill a void that can only be tended to from within. It is a cycle of profound tragedy. They run from the pain of their own emptiness, only to recreate the conditions for that same pain in every new relationship. Because every mirror, no matter how bright, eventually begins to show the truth. The illusion cannot hold. The more they run, the more they are pursued by the very shadow they are fleeing. They believe they are escaping you, but they are not. They are escaping the faint glimpse of their true self that you, in your love and your honesty, began to reflect back at them. To face that reflection would require them to stop, to be still, to take accountability. And for them, stillness is death. Running is survival. So they will run from mirror to mirror, from room to room, for the rest of their lives, unless they find the courage to stop and face the unfurnished, unlit room at the center of their own house. What they call a new love is simply an unspoken contract. I will perform the illusion of your perfect partner, and in return, you will provide me with the constant reflection of my own perfection. But all illusions fade, and all contracts built on falsehoods are destined to be broken. When the initial blinding light of idealization begins to dim, and the new partner starts to see the cracks in the mask, the entire fantasy crumbles, just as it did with you, just as it always will. If you have ever found yourself hoping, even for a moment, that they have changed, that this new love has finally healed them, I need you to hear this with all the compassion in the world. You are giving credit for growth to someone who has only changed their scenery. They have not embarked on a new journey. They have simply restarted the same well-worn cycle, a ritualistic play in 4 acts that they are doomed to repeat. This isn't fate. It's a compulsive, unconscious pattern. The first act is always idealization, and it is a masterpiece of illusion. They don't see the new person. They see a blank canvas onto which they can project all their fantasies of a perfect savior. They shower the new supply with an intoxicating level of attention and affection. They will say things like, I've never felt this way before, or it's like I've known you my whole life. These are the same lines you once heard, recycled for a new audience. Behind this facade of soulmate connection is a cold, calculated strategy. They are mapping the new partner's emotional landscape, identifying every vulnerability, every insecurity, every childhood wound. This isn't to connect with them, it's to learn which levers to pull later. As the renowned trauma expert, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk writes, the body keeps the score. The narcissist instinctively knows this. They are creating a powerful, positive imprint on the new partner's nervous system, a state of blissful attachment that they can later exploit. The second act is manipulation, and this is where the architecture of the House of Mirrors becomes truly disorienting. Love is no longer a source of warmth, it becomes a tool of control. They begin to flicker the lights in the house, alternating between intense affection and sudden, inexplicable withdrawal. This isn't random moodiness. It's a highly effective technique called intermittent reinforcement. By making their love unpredictable, they create a state of anxiety and craving in their partner. The new supply finds themselves constantly trying to win back the initial affection, to get the lights turned back on, without realizing they are being emotionally conditioned like a lab animal pressing a lever for a reward. They create an addiction, and then they become the sole dealer of the drug. They will say something incredibly loving in the morning and be cold and distant by evening, leaving the new partner in a state of constant confusion, always blaming themselves. What did I do wrong? They will wonder, never suspecting that their confusion is the intended outcome. This keeps the new partner perpetually off balance, focused on pleasing them and unable to see the structure of the trap they are in. Once the bond of addiction is forged, the third act, devaluation, begins. The mask begins to slip. The mirror that once reflected perfection is now criticized for its flaws. The person they once worshipped is now the target of subtle, corrosive criticism. The comments are designed to be just plausible enough to induce self-doubt. You're being too sensitive. My ex would have understood. I'm only saying this because I want the best for you. These are not observations. They are weapons designed to chip away at the new partner's self-worth. They introduce comparisons, hold them to impossible standards, and slowly, systematically dismantle their confidence. The new partner begins to doubt their own perceptions, their own feelings, their own sanity. This is the goal: to make the mirror so dependent on the narcissist's validation that it will never dare to reflect an unwanted truth again. They no longer feel like they are in a relationship. They feel like they are in a constant state of auditioning for a role they can never quite perfect. And finally, when the new supply is emotionally exhausted, when their light begins to dim, when they can no longer provide the flawless, adoring reflection the narcissist requires, the fourth act arrives: the discard. It is often as swift and brutal as the idealization was intoxicating. They may vanish without a word or orchestrate a dramatic exit where they cast themselves as the victim. They need to control the narrative. They cannot simply leave. They must leave in a way that preserves their image of being the good one, the one who was wronged. And before the discarded partner can even begin to process the shock and the grief, the narcissist has already moved on. They are already in the next room of the house, polishing a new mirror, starting Act 1 of the same old play. From the outside, it looks like they have found happiness. It looks like a rebirth. But what you are witnessing is not the beginning of a new life, but the grim repetition of a deep-seated pathology. Carl Jung's words echo here with profound clarity. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The narcissist is trapped in this fate, this endless cycle, because they have never made their own shadow conscious. They believe they are choosing new partners, new loves, new destinies. In reality, they are just taking another turn in a labyrinth of their own design, forever chasing a perfect reflection and forever fleeing from the truth of who they are. But no performance can run indefinitely. The lights on the stage eventually begin to expose the worn-out props and the tired actor. The new supply, who was once the symbol of the narcissist's triumphant new beginning, inevitably starts to ask the same questions you once did. Why did the passion vanish overnight? Why does their love now feel like a cage? Why do I feel so alone when I'm right beside them? And in that moment of questioning, the tragedy doesn't just repeat. It proves that no one ever truly escaped the House of Mirrors. They only passed the role of the primary mirror onto someone else. If you ever feared that their new love is realer, deeper, or more authentic than what you shared, let that fear dissolve in the light of this truth. They haven't changed the play. They've only changed the lead actor. The new partner is living a spiritual and emotional replica of your past. They are being fed the same lines, subjected to the same tests, and guided through the same 4 acts. They have become you, a vessel of hope and light that the narcissist will inevitably try to drain because they cannot generate their own. The darkness always returns. Jung taught that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The narcissist's entire existence is a frantic effort to avoid this essential human task. They use their partner's light to create the illusion of their own enlightenment. But when that borrowed light begins to dim, when the new supply starts to have their own needs, their own boundaries, their own moments of doubt, the narcissist's repressed shadow begins to seep through the cracks. It manifests as criticism, as silent treatments, as a campaign to smear their character to others, or as poisonous phrases disguised as care. "You've changed," they'll say, a statement that really means, "Your reflection of me has changed and I don't like what I see." Or, "I just feel like I can't be myself around you anymore," which translates to, "My performance is no longer working on you and it's making me uncomfortable." These are not new scripts. They are echoes from your own past, a mantra they repeat to convince themselves that the problem always lies with the mirror, never with the person looking into it. The most haunting part of this entire dynamic is its profound impersonality. In the narcissist world, you never truly existed as a unique, sovereign being. Neither does the new supply. You were both interchangeable roles, functions, objects. You were the mirror. The new supply is the mirror. Your purpose was not to be loved, but to reflect. When you began to show them a reflection they found unflattering, you were deemed defective. The new supply will face the same fate. When their light of adoration flickers, when they begin to assert their own humanity, they too will be seen as a broken mirror that needs to be discarded. Love is not a currency of connection for them. It is a transaction of power. Your joy was proof of their influence. Your pain was proof of their control. When their partner stops reacting, the narcissist doesn't feel empathy for their pain. They feel the terrifying collapse of their own ego. The silence of a partner is not heard as a plea for connection. It is heard as the sound of their own irrelevance. And so, just as they did with you, they will choose the only path they know. They will tear down the stage, blame the actor, and immediately start building a new one, calling the destruction a new beginning. But what they call destiny is a closed loop, a self-created prison where every new person is just another opportunity to confront the shadow they refuse to meet. You were one of the first mirrors to truly frighten them with a glimpse of their own emptiness. The new supply is simply the next, and they, too, are destined to shatter, because no reflection, no matter how beautiful, can survive forever in a house where all the windows are sealed shut. There is a moment, and it often arrives without a sound, when the entire structure of their power begins to collapse. It isn't a dramatic, explosive event. It is a quiet, internal implosion that begins with an absence, the absence of a reaction. The new supply, the one who was supposed to be the eternal source of validation, begins to go quiet, just as you once did. They stop defending themselves. They stop crying. They stop trying to understand. And in that sacred, terrifying silence, the narcissist's entire constructed reality begins to fracture. A narcissist is a psychic vampire. They feed on emotional reactions. Your joy, your anger, your tears, your fear, it is all fuel. It confirms their importance, their centrality in your universe. Silence, however, is starvation. It is the ultimate invalidation. Ironically, they tasted this with you first. They were profoundly unsettled when you stopped engaging in the circular arguments, when you stopped pleading for them to see your pain. They may have painted your withdrawal as victory, as proof that they had won, but in the deep, unconscious parts of their being, it was the first tremor that signaled the coming earthquake. They believed that by finding a new partner, a brighter, more compliant mirror, they could simply paper over that crack in their foundation. What they failed to understand is this: they didn't just leave you. They fled the only mirror that was beginning to show them the truth without distortion. When you stopped reacting, you ceased to be a puppet in their play and became something far more powerful, a clear pane of glass. Through you, for a fleeting moment, they glimpsed their own shadow, their own emptiness. It terrified them, and instead of integrating that lesson, they ran. They chose a new mirror, hoping to see a more pleasing image. But the shadow doesn't vanish simply because you change the lighting. It follows. And now, as the new supply pulls away, as their reflection too begins to clarify into a simple, honest pane of glass, that old crack in the narcissist's soul doesn't just reappear. It widens into an abyss. This is the beginning of the collapse. It is a process. Carl Jung might call the times Negredo asterisk, the blackening, a stage in alchemy where all false elements must be burned away to reveal what is true. For a healthy soul, this is a painful but necessary part of growth. For the narcissist, whose entire identity is built on falsehood, the times, Negredo times, is not a purification. It is an annihilation. With no one left to project their flaws onto, they must face their own reflection. With no one left to blame, they must sit in the silence filled only with the echoes of their own actions. In this state of collapse, they may desperately grasp for a new narrative. You might see them suddenly become deeply religious or spiritual. They will speak of karma, of healing, of light, of soul journeys. But for most, this is not a genuine quest for truth. It is a more sophisticated performance, a phenomenon known as spiritual bypassing. They are using the language of enlightenment to build another, more ornate room in their house of mirrors, one where they can see themselves reflected as a healing soul. It's just another mask, another way to avoid the terrifying, humbling work of actually facing their own darkness. And in the quietest hours of the night, when the applause from the new supply has faded and the spiritual platitudes ring hollow, their memory may drift back to you. It is not love that pulls them back. It is a haunting, intellectual curiosity. You represent the great anomaly in their life, the one mirror that didn't just crack, but transformed into a window. In the relationship with you, they felt something they couldn't control and therefore couldn't understand, the stillness of genuine connection. They didn't know how to handle it, so they destroyed it. And now, surrounded by the wreckage of their manufactured relationships, they may have a chilling realization. No one will ever love them with the depth you did, because no one else has seen them as clearly as you did. But by the time they consider returning, the door to that world is forever closed. The universe, in its wisdom, is forcing their soul to finally look at itself without a mediating reflection. No adoring eyes from you, no fresh supply, no audience. Just them, alone, in the dark, in the center of their own house. And in that terrifying, naked moment, the collapse becomes a sacred opportunity, the death of the illusion. A very small few will take it. They will surrender, endure the darkness, and begin the arduous journey back to an authentic self. But most will not. The terror is too great. And so, they will frantically seek out another actor, restart the play, and the tragic cycle will be born anew. And what about you, the one who walked away? The journey out of the House of Mirrors is not a simple act of leaving. It is a profound act of remembering who you were before you became a reflection. You did not leave because your love ran out. You left because you finally realized that true love cannot breathe in an atmosphere of control. You left not for revenge, but to reclaim your role as the author of your own life. In the beginning, the silence is deafening. You felt you had lost everything, the person you loved, the future you dreamed of, your very faith in love itself. But as you sit with the pain night after night without running from it, a quiet miracle occurs. You begin to hear a voice you haven't heard in years, your own. It is the voice of your soul, which was drowned out by the constant noise of trying to be understood, trying to be good enough, trying to fix what was never yours to fix. And this voice doesn't blame or judge, it whispers, with gentle relief, "Welcome home, I have missed you." This is where your true healing begins. Healing is not the act of forgetting them. It is the act of remembering yourself in your entirety. You no longer need to analyze their words or brace for their moods because there is no part of you left that is waiting for their validation. You have seen their light and you have seen their shadow, and you have chosen the quiet dignity of your own peace over the chaotic drama of their internal war. You have done what they could not. You have made the darkness conscious. You walked through the long, dark night of the soul, and you didn't take any shortcuts. You sat with the loneliness. You faced the parts of yourself that once confused intensity with intimacy, that mistook being rescued for being loved. In that radical self-acceptance, your identity shifts. You are no longer a victim of their story. You are the calm, compassionate witness of your own. And as your soul reclaims its space, the world shifts around you. The silence that was once used to punish you now becomes your most trusted companion, a space of clarity and strength. You no longer need an apology because you see with heartbreaking clarity that their entire life is the consequence of their actions. You no longer wish for their suffering because you understand a profound spiritual truth. Only deeply wounded people feel the need to see others in pain, to feel a sense of justice. Your focus has shifted from them to you. You no longer seek love as a destination. You cultivate it as a presence within you. You no longer need a mirror to tell you that you are worthy. You have become your own source of light. This light isn't the blazing, performative light of the narcissist. It is the gentle, steady glow of soul wisdom, the kind that can only be born from having walked through darkness and learned not to fear it. One day, you will hear their name or see a picture, and you will feel nothing. No surge of anger, no pang of nostalgia, no tremor of fear, just a quiet, settled stillness. It is the feeling of recognizing a character from a book you read long ago, knowing with absolute certainty that the story is over. You might even smile, not a smile of forgiveness, but a smile of freedom. You are free because you are no longer entangled in the need for an outcome from them. You understand now that everything that happened, as painful as it was a kind of sacred initiation. The narcissist was not just your wound, they were the catalyst. They were the harsh teacher of the shadow, the one who, by showing you everything that love is not, taught you, by contrast, what true, authentic love feels like in your own soul. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? You now ask, what did this teach me about myself? And in that question, you transform from the one who was broken into the one who has been reborn. Freedom, you realize, is not the absence of scars. It is the ability to look at your scars and say, you were the price of my wisdom, and I would pay it again. You do not simply move on, you ascend. You are no longer defined by the storm. You are the quiet, unshakable peace that follows it. You no longer search for the light at the end of the tunnel because you have finally realized that you are and always have been the light. The entire journey was never about them. It was always about your return to yourself. They were just the darkness that forced you to learn how to generate your own light. You have come full circle, from the blindness of infatuation, through the agony of betrayal, to the sovereign peace of self-knowledge. You stand on the other side now, where you no longer need anyone else's reflection to feel real. True victory is never loud. It is the quiet confidence of a soul that has been tested by fire and has emerged not unscathed, but whole. In the ancient language of alchemy, this is the time's rubedo asterisk, the reddening. The final stage where lead is transformed into gold. You no longer seek love, for you have become it. You no longer chase validation, for you are your own source. And in that sacred space, you see that they are still wandering the corridors of their own house of mirrors, forever searching for a reflection that doesn't show them the truth of their own face. But you have walked out of the labyrinth. You did not find the exit. You became the light that illuminated the entire maze from within. And you understand that forgiveness is no longer a relevant concept, because there is nothing left to forgive. Everything was just a lesson in the soul's long journey toward remembering itself. You have come home. And in that silence, you smile. Not because you have forgotten, but because you have finally, completely remembered that nothing and no one could ever extinguish your light. They only taught you how to see it.